I'm here with my friend Patrick Sullivan and baby James, and I'm so excited to talk to you today.
I'm excited too.
So Patrick, for those of our members that might not be familiar with your work, just give us a little bit of what you're doing in the church today.
So quite simply put, we're putting our ear to the hearts in the church today and listening for a need. When we identify a need, we try to go out and inspire and catechize. So that takes many, many different forms. And we listen project by project, speaking event by speaking event, to what God has in store for us.
And what is your ministry called?
Evango.
Very good. And how can people find you?
Well, the simplest way is to go to evango.net, but we're on pretty much all social media. You can find Evango somewhere. And that's pretty much it. So we're out there. You will bump into us.
Very good. And if someone were to ask you the unique lens or the unique gift or differentiation you bring to the landscape of evangelization, what would you tell them?
Ooh, what gift do I bring? Well, humility first. Humility. We want to speak to people's hearts. And if that means that I must look the fool, then I will. If that means that I need to talk about philosophy, theology, I will. I love talking about those things. If that means I need to serve someone, we as a team, on Evango, we will. No matter what it takes, our mission is we will not stop until we evangelize. So speaking to the hearts, that's pretty much us.
Very good. And I know you're doing something for parents. Tell me a little bit about that.
So one of the needs we've heard about by, again, listening intently to the church is this great need of Catholic parents. We found that a lot of parents with young children, especially their first or the second, even if their faith is wildly alive, they're going to the parish and it's cute at first and people are very understanding at first with the cooing child and the cries and everything. Sooner or later, the mom and dad start to feel a little antsy, a little awkward. So they slowly start to relegate themselves to the vestibule, to the foyer, and they stay there for a bit, and then they realize, well, they're not really getting it, so maybe we should switch off. And what we're finding as a pattern, at least in the North American churches, is that very quickly, usually within a year, you don't see those parents anymore at Mass. So put that in your mind for a second to the side. And on the other hand, we do know about the attacks on the family. We do know that really in the culture right now, people are looking at moms and dads and children, and many children, as a burden. And certainly joy is not the first word that comes to many people's minds. So we wanted to help in both those areas. We want to bring joy back to the family life. We want the parents to come back with those kids, and we want parents to say loudly with their lives, because they do feel it, this is so joyful, and I wouldn't choose anything else. So the program we have coming out, we're doing our first release in hopefully just a couple of weeks, called Me and My House. That's for Me and My House, we will serve the Lord.
Yes.
And it's about, first, just a challenge, a 5-day challenge to Catholic parents to up their game a little bit.
Ooh.
So you'll see that coming out soon enough, but it's just myself, Kyla, sharing our family life, saying, look, here's one little thing you can do to come back. And that's what we want to do, come back. We put out the honey, we attract them, right? Put this out, come back. We're not trying to overwhelm people. We're trying to reach those parents who really need help. And there's a lot of good people out there, but they don't know how to re-engage. So we at Evango, we're looking at that, we're saying, okay, parents, here we go. As for Me and My House, we'll serve the Lord. How about you? Doesn't take much, takes a little bit. Try it with us.
Very cool. Well, as a mom of 6 and then you're a father of 7, that's very dear to my heart as well. What do you wish all people knew about evangelization?
What do I wish all people knew about evangelization? If you're not in love, it doesn't matter. We all do it. We have to help people in our line of work, and the ministries God has called us to. These are techniques that work. These are programs that work. These are ways to say things that really affect people. But at the end of the day, if you're not in love, it doesn't matter.
In love with whom?
I think you know.
I know, I just want you to say it.
You want me to say it? If you're not in love with Jesus Christ, it does not matter. And the reason it doesn't matter because, look, God is on the mountain. When we love Him, He trickles down the water to the people at the foot worshiping Him. The more I love God, the more I will love my wife, and I do. The more I love God, the more I love my wife, and then the more I love my children. And the more our unit, this gift of God, this family, loves God, well, we have this mission. We're going to become saints, and we're going to evangelize, and it bubbles over. This is a medieval maxim. Love is diffusive of itself. So the more in love with God I am, I will find ways to speak more gently, perhaps, using different words, different methods, all these different things. I'll find a way, because that's what love does. It finds a way. So that's what everyone needs to know.
So how do people fall more in love with Jesus?
I think the simplest thing is just inviting him, looking at him. It's the rare person who can look at a beautiful thing and not somewhere inside say, okay, it's kind of beautiful. It's the rare person who can look at a figure like Mother Teresa, Saint Mother Teresa, and really not be affected. How do we fall in love with Jesus? Just look at him. The beatific vision, I always think about that. What are we going to do for eternity? We're going to look upon the face of the one we love. The lechem happening, right? Here's the bread of the presence, but it's the bread of the face. When I go to the Eucharist, I'm looking at the bread of the face of God, preparing me for the beatific vision. For all eternity, I will stare at the one I love, and I will be enraptured. It will not be boring. It will not be, as some of our teenagers like to say, oh, okay, here we go. No, it's that moment we all hear about in music and in movies. I wish this moment could last forever. So what I say to people, get to the Eucharist. Look at him. Open your eyes. Don't fall asleep. Don't put your head down. Stare. Gaze. Looking at God is a tense event. It requires of you a searching, a lot. This is why a lot of people leave adoration are actually more tired than when they went in. Because they went there and God pulled us in. He drew us into himself. And that's what God does, right? We lift him up, he'll draw all the world to himself. If we look upon the one whom we have pierced, what? We'll be saved. So fall in love with him. Look at him and look at him often.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah.
So we're talking about falling in love with the Lord and the beauty of our Lord. Reminds me very much about the transcendentals, and I know that's something that's dear to your heart as well. Why don't you, for anybody who's not familiar with the transcendentals, why don't you give us just a very short explanation of what the transcendentals are?
What I usually focus on is truth, goodness, and beauty. And the reason why I focus on that is because let's pretend for a moment we're all madly in love with our Lord. Okay, that's established. And let's pretend that that's first in our lives. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, and soul. So I love God. And now I turn to the people God has given me. But the problem is sin and confusion go together. So I am sinful. I'm broken. My family's broken. The people in my life, they're all broken. So I want to communicate the love that's pouring through me to them. And I turn around and I use a language that I think I understand best. Well, guess what? They may not understand that. So one of the things I like to remind people of is that in the beginning, we spoke all these transcendentals perfectly, beautifully. We grasped it. Truth, goodness, and beauty. We all have a friend who says, oh, I don't need church. I see God in the forest when I take that walk on the path somewhere. Oh, I don't need church because I know much kinder people outside the walls of that church. I don't need church because I read these tomes over here and that fills me up. Well, here's a fact. That if I turn around from God and I'm filled with his love, remember, love is diffusive of itself. I want to bubble over for them. It's not good enough that I just spill. I actually have to look at their cup and say, what kind of cup is it? Well, this person still speaks somewhere in the recesses of their mind and heart the language of beauty. That's what they understand. That's the language they get. So you understand beauty. I'm not going to pile a tome on you. I'm not going to say, now just read this. Pat them on the head and go your merry way. Yeah. I'm not going to say, well, let's look at some really amazing selfless acts over here. That's wonderful, but you're not speaking to them. And what's happening, the love, the bubbling over, is really flowing on the table anywhere but in their cup. And they might be very polite. They might say, that's really interesting. That's very nice. Wow, you're really enthusiastic about this. But you didn't communicate what you were called to communicate.
You didn't speak their language.
You didn't speak their language.
So
we are all called to be saints and to evangelize. I become a saint first by staring at the one I love. The lechem happening, there he is. And now I got to turn around and share that good news. But if I'm not going to admit to myself that others might have a language different from my own, I'm in a heap of trouble. Because I can spend an entire life going out saying, you all must understand me. But the fact of the matter is, they may not. I believe there was a time where we used to say, evangelization equals apologetics. And maybe for some people, they still say that. I am arguing loudly.
No. I'm with
loudly, and I will not stop. That is true for some.
Yes.
That's 1/3 of the pie. There are 2/3 of people, probably more, especially in our time, we're not hearing truth very well, where we need to show them the beauty of the faith. Show me the art, show me the poetry, show me the architecture, show me what this church has done for millennia, and show me that they see what I see. That's what people want. I was saying in a talk earlier, there's my daughter, she's saying, it hurts in here. She can't express it. What does that mean? She has no idea. They're like people in the world, they know they're hurting. They see beauty and they're thinking, why don't Catholics see beauty? All they talk about is arguing. All they talk about is, let me show you where it is in the scriptures. That's very good, very important, but not for them. For them, they're saying, I see a beautiful sunset, I see a forest that's full of trees, and you guys don't seem to notice. So my whole thing with these transcendentals is really talk to them in the language God has kept alive in them. And then we can really reverse the Babel experience, the Tower of Babel, right?
So interesting. So let's get to the practical. So
Sure.
how can you give me some examples of how one might use the transcendentals in very practical ways? So an example of how would one evangelize someone, let's do the easy one first. So how would someone evangelize someone with truth?
It's actually not the easy one.
Really?
Yeah,
Well,
most people
I
think
think it's
this.
the easy one for examples. Like, you know what I mean? Like, give them
Sure.
a CD, give them a book, give them a...
And
but
we'll
you
turn
tell
to that in a
me.
moment, because it seems to us like the easiest one,
Okay.
especially the more involved in ministry life and the life of your parish, because we have resources available. I have a catechism, I can get hold of these CDs, I know a really good book over here. But what makes it so difficult is the fact that a lot of people like to sound like that's what they care about.
Oh, interesting.
If someone is going through school, or if someone has a career where much thought or study is needed, we jump the gun. We say, clearly you're about truth. Therefore, I'm going to answer every question you have on the faith.
Right.
So let's get to it.
Right.
So we start, well, let me explain Mary to you. And we get maybe a couple sentences in. Maybe they let us speak for 10 minutes. But sooner or later they say, okay, but I have a different question. You ever have that experience where you're started to explain the faith to someone and they get to a different topic before you
Sure,
can
of
finish?
course. Yeah.
You know what that tells you? Their language is not truth.
Interesting.
They're only doing that exercise because that's what they've been told they should do with Christians. Well, Christians don't know the truth, so well, answer this for me. They're not actually interested. That's not where their passion is. So the language of truth is actually more difficult because the assumption is on our part and on their part that that's what they need to hear. When in fact, most people look at me and they say, well, your language must be truth. Look at what you like, the theology, the philosophy. You like, actually, no, my language is beauty. Nothing draws me closer to God faster than beauty. I could sob like a baby when beauty hits me and God speaks to me directly. So when you think it's truth, hold back. And this is where a lot of parents go wrong, by the way, with older children. Surprise, surprise. How many times have we heard older parents saying, oh, my child is lost. I will never get them back.
Yes.
No matter what I say is good enough. They don't buy the answers I'm giving them. I'm not as smart as them. The fact of the matter is, most of those adult children or teenage children aren't looking for truth. It's not their language. They're kind of coached into talking that way by their peers or maybe by some professors or maybe by some teachers.
Is that right?
You want to know their language, though? Especially, do you want to know their language? What is their passion? How do they actually spend their time when no one is looking? And you'll find, I was just talking to someone earlier, they said, I get it now. My daughter, in her spare time, she loves art. Like painting, whatever it is. It's not her career, it's not her study or anything. She said, that's why my words and the logic of the faith and the tomes have been falling short. Try that route. Beauty with her.
So how would you say, what's like a quick hack for people to understand or discover someone else's true language? So you mentioned the example of like, look at their passion. So this girl likes art. What are some other ways that we can play detective, if you will?
Oh, and that's a great word for it. You really have to play detective. But keep in mind something here. We guard our passions very well sometimes.
Interesting.
We really do. So although we have to play detective, we have to be, well, let me put it this way. If I don't believe you have my best interest at heart, I'm going to hold back some cards. I don't really want you to know what I'm about because maybe you'll judge that. Maybe if I'm really an artist, I love that.
Right.
But the world sees me as a lawyer. Maybe that's the front I want you to have.
Right.
So while you're playing detective, remember that the closer you are to me as a friend, a real friend, the more likely I will turn the cards around. But a quick hack, because that is a great way to go about it. Here's something I like to put out there right away. So what kind of hobbies do you have? People, for the most part, don't spend their leisure time doing things they don't enjoy.
Right.
If anything can be said or done about it, that's what they do. Okay, I enjoy doing. Well, why do you enjoy doing that? And when you ask them the question, most of the time they'll fall neatly within one of these three categories. So quick, what hobbies do you have?
Nice.
Now, if you have more time, especially with children, people you have in your presence more, maybe a coworker, here's something interesting you can do. Simple experiment. Let's play the detective, the scientist. Wow, did you see the sunset last night? That was reds, unbelievable yellows. Wow. Watch their facial expression. Is it like that's interesting? He cares about sunsets. That's interesting. Or is it like, I saw one the other day. The moon, forget this, the moon was huge. Ah, beauty. See what just happened there? You gave them a sample of the language and they either rejected it or they just grabbed at it. Because people with passions, that's what we do. Did you see, I just saw someone on the subway. Yeah, you know what? He put in a coin for someone behind them. Let this guy go through. Did they take it or did they reject it? Well, it's just a coin, who cares? Or did they say, oh, I love that. Someone did that for me once. That little bit of detective work changes your mission field. Now you're not just shooting blindly in your office building, right? I'm a Catholic. I love Jesus. Do you love Jesus? Here's a conference. Here's a CD. I think you'll enjoy this book. That's shooting blindly. No, it's the whole thing about the line in the field. When I roar, projecting this kingdom, there has to be a real message that can be heard. And the lion who's 5 miles away, when he hears him, he either understands it or he doesn't, right? And this is the problem I think we have. We're giving a message out and we don't really care if people are hearing it. Well, hold on. If I want to evangelize my workplace, my home, my friends, make it count. Hey, I saw something really interesting the other day. It was this show, and I couldn't believe that. I was watching the show, and all the art they depicted was actually really ugly. Are they a picture? Do they love beauty? This is going to come out very quickly. Either they won't care, oh, that's interesting. I don't really like that show. Or they go, I hate it when they do that. Right. See, I love this kind of art. You found it. You found the window that God still has a direct line to their heart.
Interesting.
So some very practical things you can do.
So it sounds to me like interpersonal relationships
Absolutely.
And skills are
crazy skills. Crazy skills.
So what would you say to somebody, this might sound like a strange question, but like, what would you say to somebody that says, well, Patrick, I have terrible interpersonal skills. Like, I don't know what you even mean by like playing detective. Like, how can one become better at being a detective of someone's transcendentals?
Questions.
And listening, I feel like.
Absolutely. Well, hopefully when we're asking questions, we're going to listen to what follows, right? We don't all do that, I'm sure. But it's the simplest thing in the world. You do not need to be a great interpersonal individual. All you need to be, just be willing. Please, everyone who's watching, yourself, myself, let's be willing to ask simple questions and keep it real for them. I mean, things are happening around us all the time. Our work, when we're at play, when we're at home. Ask questions. Did you see what our boss just did? I thought that was really nice of him. Either they're going to care or they won't care. And if they care, is it possible that their language is goodness? I just saw something the other day. It was in the sky. It was in the ground. It happened around me. I heard a cat meow. Whatever. Is it beauty? See how they respond. Ask questions about their life. Where do they spend their time? What are their hobbies? What gets their attention? There's a story of, I don't know how true it is, but years ago I heard it, that a man's walking along a very busy city street, and he's trying to teach a young person next to him, look, people listen for what they love. They hear what they love. And the child said, really? He said, yes, watch this. And he dropped a quarter. And suddenly all these heads in this very busy street turned. And he turned to the child and said, what do you love? Right? This is what we're doing. Let me drop something in your presence and see if you notice. I'm going to drop a sunset. I'm going to drop, have you heard this song? I love this song. Drop it in the presence. Do they notice? Now, the great thing about it is, because there are only three main ones, you can get pretty detailed, but three main ones, you don't have to try that hard.
Yes,
Drop a sunset, didn't work. Okay, how about this? Did you hear what Mother Teresa, did you hear about this other person? Didn't work? Okay, there's one left. This will not take all day. But once you know it, now go to town. Now you can pick out the book that works. Now you can pick out the CD. Now you can start setting them up with the right person. You've got to meet my friend. She's an artist, and she does the most amazing Monet. I don't know, something.
Yes, yes.
You know what I mean?
How can our churches do the same thing? Pick the language, speak the language. So how can the transcendentals be applied to our Catholic churches?
Well, this is where it gets very sticky for people because we're worried about offending people. But if I was on a pastoral team, let's say, and I was actually serious about evangelizing, hopefully a lot of people are very serious about evangelizing the church, but we're on a pastoral team and we want to evangelize, we do something very simple among our volunteers, among our, ministry of this, ministry of this. What is your language? Take a head count, literally. Divide yourselves up into truth, goodness, and beauty. Okay, now show us, this group over here, the truth speakers. How can we evangelize people like you? Okay, beauty speakers, how can we evangelize people like you? Come up with one thing and then set a date to it and go do it. It's not rocket science. The truth speaker speaks the truth beautifully and with passion and finds a way to get the point across. The beauty speaker finds ways all over the place. And what are they going to do if you ask them? How can we attract the beauty speaker? How can we attract the good speaker? They have ways because they're always seeing it. They're always looking for it. So here's some real examples that have popped up. I'm, let's say, the goodness speaker. We're part of this group. We have this missionary team. We're going to go put on a food drive. We love food drives. We love it. Then we're going to go hand out blankets to the poor. We love this. For us, this is what the gospel is all about. You've seen these people. Maybe you are one of these people. I don't know. But for them, it's all about the service. Let's go serve. And people like them in the community, what are they going to do? They're going to say, do you know what that parish is doing? Every time I turn around, that church is helping people that want to be part of it. The beauty missionaries. Okay, what can we do in liturgy? What can we do with the outside of the building? Could we put on maybe some kind of art thing where we display works of art? Can we show our larger community that we do better art than them? Why? Because we're inspired by the God that is beauty.
Yes.
You separate yourself into groups, teams, missionary teams, and then you go at it. And it doesn't have to be big. The smallest thing you could possibly do, what would it be? I know one parish I was a part of, to help attract the truth speakers, we knew we didn't have their attention. So let's put up a large banner that has a fact on there about the faith. Very simple. They walk by. You can't ignore one line, 5 words. And the truth speakers love that exercise because how can I capture the truth in this short little space that I have that's so big, this gigantic banner, they can't ignore it. And now for the truth speakers, it's a conversation piece. Hey, did you know that the Catholics actually believe this? I thought they meant it. And they want to discuss it. And they'll call you up to do so. That's what happened to us at this parish. So find simple little things in teams and go to town.
So what would you say is the easiest way to use the transcendentals incorrectly? You touched on it a little bit in our conversation, but what would you say is the number one way to just do it wrong?
The number one way to do it wrong is not to take time. Now, I'm saying it can be done really quickly. But if you're actually not willing to befriend them, again, we'll sometimes show different cards to different people. I'm really like this mask. And no, I'm really like this mask. This is who I am. If I don't really perceive them as my friend, they're looking out for me. They love me, even if I don't really know what that means. They don't have my good right there. I'm not going to show them that. I don't think anyone will. We're very close, we're guarded. And if I assume that I've won someone's trust, I can make a grave error here. I could believe, again, for example, that they speak truth. I have to speak truth to them because, and clearly they're not after 5 minutes, after a year, after 5 years, and so on. There's a friend in my life who I made the same mistake. He had lots of questions, and I was speaking to him about the truths of the faith for years. And I kept saying to others, he's going to come around. Any minute now, he's going to come around. The fact was, he wasn't a truth speaker. It wasn't what he was looking for. But what was really going on? He hadn't completely opened up to me. In his mind, I don't really know if I can show you my brokenness yet. I don't know if I can really show you what my passions really are yet. And so I jumped the gun. We have to accept it. When I know I'm just an acquaintance, okay, you're not sure yet. Hold back, slow down. God is patient. We can try a little bit, right? So that's the biggest error, is just assuming, not taking the time to unfold the mystery that is the person.
What would you say to someone who feels very frustrated? So let's say we have a lot of members who have challenges with, lapsed family members. Mm-hmm. So what would you say to somebody who's feeling very discouraged? They've been maybe they've been going about it wrongly, so maybe they're not speaking the same language as them, but they've been doing it for a long time, years even. And even if they are speaking the same language, maybe it's taking years. What would you say to that person that's feeling very discouraged?
I'll say one of two things. If you've actually been called to evangelize this person, keep at it. But notice what I said there, if you've actually been called to evangelize this person. God doesn't send you to everyone, as much as we like to think of it like that. The church goes to everyone. Yeah. He sends me to a person. And I have to be humble enough to recognize that some parts of the mission field are not meant for me. And that's hard, especially with doing what we do as our ministry team. That person over there is going to require someone other than me. Maybe we just grate on each other's nerves. Maybe we just always think the worst of each other. Maybe we just, I don't know, there's some barrier, some block. You know what? That's okay if it's not you, because probably you haven't been called to that person. So one of the things we always encourage is pray to God about who the next person is you're trying to evangelize. Bring God into the conversation. Who's next? Who do you want me to befriend? Who do you want me to find out their language about? Who do you want me to help? Is it this person? Ask. Is it this person? They really need you, Lord. Is it that person? Well, is it this person? And you just go through a list. God is faithful. He'll show you.
Go through a list?
Go, absolutely. Go through the list. My wife and I, we do this from time to time. Okay, who is God calling us to bring to Him? And we'll go through a list. Okay, well, there's this family member. Well, okay, there's this person from work, or there's this person we met in the community. Are you hearing anything yet from the Lord? No? Okay, let's keep going. And sure enough, every time God has stopped us. This person. Okay, let's befriend them. Real friends, real authentic friendships. Now we're befriending, we're getting to know them. We're trusting each other. We're sharing our lives together. What's their language? I think it's this. Are we sure it's that? Let's just make sure it's that. It is that. Here's a book I think you'll want to read.
If you don't mind me asking, how many people do you sort of quote unquote work on at a time?
You can't ask that. Really, it changes, because some people require, it seems like, all of our evangelizing efforts. Prayer, fasting, good works, everything. And God will do that. He's saying, I need you to stop everything else, focus on this person. We've had times where it's up to 5. Some people wish it would be more than that. Now, in our line of work with ministry and evangelizing, there's a larger pool God is sending us to, of course. But on that one-to-one, personal, life-changing encounter, I want to introduce you to my best friend Jesus kind of thing, it's usually relatively small.
Right, because it requires time and intention.
Exactly. And real friendships take time.
Yeah, you can't speed up authenticity.
No.
Wonderful.
No.
Well, this has been a beautiful interview. Are there any final words you'd like to share with our members?
No, just keep doing what you're doing. Love God. Figure out how they speak. And then roar like the lion.
Roar!
Roar! That was pretty good.
Thank you so much, Patrick.
Oh, thank you for having me.